Hey everybody, it's Danielle Chiasson here, reaching out to you with a personal invitation to watch a webinar series called Flipping for Income. All the different components that it takes in order to flip a house. And it is quite complex, so we've decided to break it down into four stages, into 5 different webinars. The first webinar being Flipping for Income, Part 1, Understanding what you're getting into. So we're having this webinar tomorrow night, April 27th at 7 p.m. If you've opened up this video, then you've received an invitation to watch. It is a free webinar, so I encourage you to register when we get off of this video and join us tomorrow night. The reason why is because if you're at all considering investing in real estate and you're considering the option of flipping, it's really important for you to understand the process. A lot of people jump into the process without really knowing what they're getting into. They just buy a house, they think they're getting it at a good deal, and then they later find out that it wasn't such a good deal. It was more that they can handle, and so and a lot of times they get hurt in the process, and they may lose. If nothing else, they lose on some time, but sometimes you could even have a financial loss. So the whole purpose of this webinar is for you to understand the process and avoid that from happening to you. So I highly encourage you to log in and register. Join us tomorrow night. Just to give you guys a brief overview of what the series is going to cover. So I've broken down flipping into 4 stages. So our first webinar is going to be just an overview of these 4 stages. Oh, by the way, it's going to be an interactive webinar, so you're going to be able to ask some questions, get some questions answered. I plan on hitting every single question and getting all of them answered. The webinar is only going to be about 30 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes. I want to make sure that we kept some time for Q&A so that everybody has a chance to speak and get the questions answered. So the first one is going to be an overview from start to finish, hitting up the 4 stages. Our second webinar is going to be all about stage 1, which is marketing and acquisition. Without a property, you have nothing to flip, so it's a pretty important stage. There's a lot of different ways you can market, and when you're acquiring a property, I'm going to talk to you about how you can do that. There's ways you can do that traditionally through a real estate agent and have them draft up an agreement, but you can also do it privately. And then of course there's the whole negotiating factor, how to negotiate a good deal, how to run your numbers, what conditions to put into an agreement, how to protect yourself. So that's going to be our second webinar, which is going to be stage 1. Stage 2, our third webinar, is going to be all about financing. So Hong's actually going to get on with that one, help us out a little bit. There's so many different ways, again, with financing. There's private money, there's hard money, conventional money. You can do a blanket mortgage on existing properties that you have. There's a lot of different ways you can structure and find the financing on a property that you have under contract. So we're going to talk about financing in detail on our third webinar. Our fourth webinar is going to be the fun part, what everybody wants to do, which is the renos. So we're going to do from start to finish on renovating the property. So it's going to be from getting the quotes to vetting your contractors, all the way to what contracts to sign with your contractors to protect yourself and limit your liability to the finishing of the project. So that's going to be our fourth webinar. And our fifth and final webinar is going to be the closing and disposition of your property, closing out the books. And I'm also going to throw into our last webinar some do's and don'ts. So some tips for you if you do decide to get into trying out and flipping a house or 2 or 5. Some things to look out for, because for me as a real estate investor, the one thing that I want to do is protect myself from any risk or liabilities, or limit those liabilities. And so by sharing with you some do's and don'ts, things that I've learned while I've been doing it, will help you minimize that as well. So I really hope you guys decide to join me. Speaking of reducing our risk and limiting our liabilities, in my opinion, the best way to do that is through education. So this is one avenue for you to educate yourself, is through watching these series of webinars. Educate yourself, understand the process. Even if you don't want to flip, you may just be somebody who's looking to invest in real estate with some extra capital that you have. You might want to joint venture with somebody like myself who is flipping houses and do a joint venture. By the way, we'll speak about joint ventures on the second webinar. You may want to partner up through joint venture partnership with someone like me who's flipping houses, and you can fund their flips and you can share on the profit on the back end. So that's called passive investing. If you guys want to invest passively, which is just invest your money but not do too much of the work, you might be an engineer. There's a lot of engineers out there that I work with that have extra capital and don't have the time. So this is how they invest in real estate. So if that's what you're looking for, whether you want to flip or not, there's understanding the process of flipping houses is really a good starting point for you to understand it, to limit your liability. And if you're talking to someone who is doing it, it puts you in a better position when you're negotiating with them. So I really hope when you get off this video, open the link, register to the webinar so we can see it tomorrow. I'm very excited about getting to know all of you. So I'll see you tomorrow.